In this video, I'm going to give you a simple yet powerful framework for entering trades, setting stops, and setting targets. Entering trades at the right time is vital. Let's say I enter EURUSD long at 1.5100 with a 100 pip target and a 50 pip stop. My target will be at 1.5200 and my stop at 1.5050. So a win is worth 100 pips and a loss is worth 50 pips or negative 50 pips, giving me a ratio of 1 to 2. Now let's say you enter this same trade, but 10 pips later, at 1.5110. Your stop and target need to be in the same place as they are optimal price action based stops and targets, which I will discuss next. So in this scenario, your target will be 90 pips away and your stop 60 pips away. What ratio does that give you? 1 to 1.5. That is not a horrible risk to reward ratio, but it's not as good as 1 to 2. So you see, a mere 10 pips difference can have a big impact on your actual trade. Your stop is going to be bigger, your target is going to be smaller. And that isn't very logical, is it? No, of course not. Well, I've created a simple framework for you to follow which allows you to enter trades at the right time, set good stops, and of course, good targets. This framework is called STEP. What does STEP stand for? Stop, target, entry, place. Use price action to find a safe and smart stop. Use price action to find a safe and smart target. Use price action to find the optimal entry, and then place the trade in that order. This framework is easy to remember and easy to follow. When you decide that a trade is worth entering, your first step is to remember to use STEP. Going back a few years, I used a complicated process for picking my targets and stops. I will calculate the average daily range of each pair I traded and then divide it by 4. It was needlessly complicated. Then I had a moment of clarity and I thought, I'm using price action to enter my trades, why wouldn't I use price action to set a stop and target? And that's exactly what STEP is. We use price action to pick a target and a stop. The best thing about this is it makes trading easier. We're all busy, our time is valuable, and STEP saves time. Picking a stop and target in under a minute gives you more time to do the things you love. So let's break this down further. I'm going to show you how to accomplish each of these steps: stop, target, entry, place, so you can place trades. Let's start with stops and targets. I'm going to teach you the key rule to understanding stops and targets. It is logical, but most people don't think about stops and targets in this way. I like to place smart stops and smart targets. What are smart stops and smart targets? This is going to be the most important lesson you learn about trading. It's going to be vital. It will make a huge difference in your trading. I know because it made a huge difference in my trading. Imagine you're trapped out in the wild and you want to get back home. This is you standing here. You can walk in one of two directions, either over this huge snow-capped mountain or over this flat open grassy plain. Which way would you walk? Would you go this way, over the big snow-capped mountain, risk freezing to death? Or would you walk this way, over the warmer, flatter, and safer open plain? If you want to survive, you're going to take the path of least resistance. The mountain is too big a barrier. The open plain is safer and easier to traverse. That is exactly how you need to think about stops and targets. This is not you. This is your trade. When you enter a trade, where do you put your target? Do you put your target over here, behind this huge barrier, making it hard for price to hit your target? And do you place your stop here, over this easily traversed open area, making it easy for price to hit your stop? No, of course not. Your stop goes here, behind the barrier. You want your stop to be hard for price to hit, and your target goes here, in a large open area. You want your target to be easy for price to hit. You want your stop to be hard for price to hit. You want your target to be easy for price to hit. Pretty simple. Pretty logical. Remember that because it's vital to your trading. Whenever you want to enter a trade, you need to make sure your stop is hard for price to reach, and your target is easy for price to reach. So how do you do that when you look at an actual real chart and not a picture of a mountain? Well, you do it visually. If you trade price action, you place your stops and targets based on price action. So what is a barrier in price action terms? Well, you already know what a barrier is. Barriers are support resistance areas. Support and resistance areas act as barriers to price. They are like a mountain which price has to climb. So when entering a trade, it's logical to place your stop beyond an area of support resistance. So in this example here, we see indecision forming on top of a resistance area. This is a continuation reversal. Where should the stop go? Here above the resistance area. That puts the stop behind a barrier because this resistance area is a barrier. But can we put it behind two barriers, not just one? Well, there is another barrier that you know about. If you remember back to highs and lows, remember the importance of higher highs and lower lows? Well, recent highs and lows act as barriers too. In this case, we can place our stop above the high of indecision. Placing our stop above the high places it behind two barriers. So now to hit our stop, price has to break the resistance area, and then it has to create a new high beyond the high of this candle. This is a double barrier. It's going to be tough for buyers to break through here. Setting a stop may seem intimidating, but it's really that simple. Your stop needs to be behind a barrier. What barrier do you use? Number one, support resistance. If you're taking a short reversal, you want to place it behind resistance. If you're taking a long reversal, you want to place it behind support. Number two is highs and lows. If you're taking a short reversal trade, you want to place it beyond the highest high of the last 5 candles. If you're taking a long reversal, you want to place it below the lowest low of the last 5 candles. That is a price action based stop, and it's a smart stop because it's sitting behind a barrier. Going back to the mountain analogy, the stop is here over the big mountain, and the target? Well, once you have a stop, setting your target is pretty easy. Your target needs to fit 2 criteria. At a minimum, it needs to be 1 to 1.5 ratio of your stop. What does that mean? Well, with a stop of 100 pips, your target needs to be 150 pips at a minimum. With a stop of 200 pips, your target needs to be 300 pips at a minimum. With a stop of 50 pips, your target needs to be 75 pips at a minimum. So your minimum target is 1.5 times your stop loss. If you need to calculate this quickly, just enter into a calculator the size of your stop loss multiplied by 1.5. And your target needs to be in the open valley. In other words, it needs to be in front of any major barriers like a support resistance area. So the requirements for a good target are simple. It needs to be 1.5 times your stop loss at a minimum, and it needs to be before any major barriers. In this example, the target goes here. As you see, it comes before the support area, which acts as a barrier. Looks to be around 2 times the stop, just visually, which is over the 1.5 times minimum. For now, we're going to do this visually. We will confirm that this is actually beyond the 1.5 times minimum after setting an entry, because the entry is going to affect the size of the stop and the size of the target. But right now, the setup has potential. Price is sitting here. The stop is above resistance, pretty small stop, not too far from current price, and the target has a huge open plane to cross, and it's a pretty big target. Once you confirm that you have a good stop and a good target, you need to figure out your entry. You cannot just enter a trade wherever you want. There needs to be a price action based reason for entering a trade. So what's a price action reason? Well, you learned about the importance of higher highs and higher lows. So if you want to enter a short trade here, your stop is around here, like we've discussed, and your target is around here. Where will your entry be? Well, you want to enter this trade when sellers show us that they are taking control of price. If we go short or sell, we want sellers to be in control. So we want our entry in this case to be below resistance. So this is the resistance area. We want our entry to be below the resistance area. We don't want to enter up here, because if we enter up here, this resistance area might act as support and it might turn price around. So we want to enter below the resistance area. That way we have the barrier above the entry. And we want our entry to be at a lower low. Remember, a lower low is in a seller's nature. When sellers take control of price, they create lower lows. So when a lower low is created, that confirms to us that sellers have taken control of price. And when you couple that with the indecision candle forming on top of resistance, that is a good entry. So it's all pretty simple in the end. When entering a trade, all you need to do is take a step. Stop, target, entry, place. Your stop needs to be behind the mountain. in an area in which price will struggle to hit. Your target needs to be in a big open valley where price will easily hit. Your entry needs to be in an area that confirms buyers or sellers have taken control. In this case, we're looking at a short trade, so we want sellers to take control. And then you place your trade.